Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is a show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. And before I get started, I do have a couple of Kickstarters going on right now. First is Mullock the Damned. This is actually written by David Booher and drawn by Winston Gambro. It's about the devil's son getting kicked out of hell, having this ragtag team of different type of characters and art styles teaming up. So if you enjoyed things like Specs from Boom and Rain, both that David wrote, I definitely recommend this one. Also, we do have our comic book, Witches of Oz, which is about Glinda and the Wicked Witch finally getting together, and in this issue, they are a fish out of water and joining the fun in Kansas. So hopefully you guys go check that out. Also, at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week, so in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured in the next episode. So let's jump in. I will say this week I had so many comic books. I am one shy of 20 comics, and I almost read The Guy in the Chair. I've been recommended that one. I was like, I didn't read the first issue yet, so I would have had to get the first issue and the second issue. So I was like, I think maybe I'll wait for the third if I hear even good things about the second issue compared to the first, because the first issue had a lot of great things told about it. But I was like, there's so many comics, like I kind of had to cut some. And of course, the big comic, which is DC and Marvel's crossover, which we will talk about. And I'll also say the comic book store was so crazy and busy because of it. I've never seen a line as long as it was at like 12:15 to get comic books, which I was really happy to see people coming to the store because of an event like that. But let's jump in. Number 19 for me is X-Men Book of Revelation issue 2. With this book, we get to see Kitty Pryde as a ghost. We've obviously seen this part of her story before, and there's this character who ends up turning into a villain by the end, where what side is this character going to pick? And then in the end, it's like, okay, I'm kind of gonna become my own villain here, and who cares about Kitty? I'll say the reason this is so low is because A, it's hard to get into Age of Revelations, the world, so if you're not into the world as much, I don't know if you'll feel as dedicated to this character. And also, it felt very exposition heavy. There's been other Kitty stories that have dealt with this a little bit better from an emotional standpoint. It just didn't do it for me as a Kitty fan. So giving that one 2.5 stars, and that is number 19. Moving on to number 18, which is It Killed Everyone But Me, issue 3. This issue, I felt like delved a lot into different characters in their past and started getting a little convoluted for me. The thing I was really excited for, and I felt like was promised in the first issue, was the psyche of our main character, the person who survived it all. And I just feel like we haven't focused on her as much as I've wanted to see for the series, and I think that's why I felt a little less connected to this story. I still want to see it through. I still think it's a very interesting concept, but I've been wanting to enjoy it more than I have with this issue. But I think there's about 2 issues left. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 18. Moving on to number 17, which is Nova Centurion, issue 1. This is written by Jed MacKay, which is mostly why I picked this up. I have been pleasantly surprised by Jed MacKay's books, especially solo series, but I've never really been into Nova's character, especially Ryder's character. Like, I've liked Sam. I think he's been a fun character. He has not been shown in a very long time, but I've liked that side of Nova because it was a bit more grounded in YA. This is a side where, I'm not into Cosmic Marvel as much, so I didn't like this issue as much, but I think that has to do more of my fandom towards Cosmic Marvel than the testament of this issue. I think there is some good emotion with Nova here. I liked seeing him down on his luck. It just wasn't particularly a book for me, but that doesn't mean it was a bad book. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 17. Moving on to 16, this is one of the most anticipated issues of the week, and that is Capes issue 1. It is a reprint of a book that Robert Kirkman already released with Invincible. I think it was backup stories for Invincible, and we're seeing it retold in some way. I think they just like refurbished a book. I don't particularly know how. Maybe they added more scenes, or they made the art more crisp. But I thought it was okay. I liked it for what it was. I liked it being a capsule in time and making references to Hero's Homecoming episode. I thought was really fun and interesting. But overall, it also is a capsule of its time. I feel like some of the characters felt a little bit unlikable in some ways with some of their social views. And I don't know if I enjoyed reading it in that regard. I know he's supposed to not be a likable character, but there wasn't really anyone here that for me was too likable. I think they introduced everyone very quickly, and I just couldn't really sink my teeth into this. But like I said, I think it was an interesting issue as a capsule in time. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 16. Moving on to number 15, which I read digitally, and that's Final Boss issue 1. I like the vibe of this book. It's very 90s. So if you like that side of comics, pick this up. For me, I had a fun time for this issue, but I don't think it gave me enough for issue 2 as someone who's not as much of like a Spawn fan or, you know, those 90s big muscle comic books like Cable, or I like Cable post 90s, but I just feel like it was just an action issue, which is fine. It was a pretty slim backstory about why this guy is doing what he's doing. He has these superpowers of some sort, and he's gonna fight his way to the top and go against some bad guys. I mean, that's the story. The artwork was fun, and it depends on if that's what you're looking for as a palette cleanser or if you're not. I don't know if this is skyrocketing to my number 1 story-wise, but I think there's always a necessary palette cleanser in your pull list, and I think this will be a palette cleanser for someone, just probably not me. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 15. Moving on to number 14, which is Power Rangers TMNT Volume 3, Issue 3. This one I think focused a lot on knowing the backstories of all the franchises. I think previous issues have done a better job at meshing Power Rangers with TMNT, and I think this leaned a little bit more into the TMNT angle, but I had a fun time. Like, I still liked the visuals and seeing the meshing of these different characters. By Volume 3 now, I think I wanted a little bit more character work, and it's definitely focusing more on the visuals and the play of that idea of the crossover, which I still had a fun time with, and I liked the art. It just wasn't the stronger issue for me compared to some of the other volumes. So giving that 3 stars, and that was number 14. So now we're moving on to number 13, which is The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 16. I actually felt very torn about this issue because there's elements I did enjoy for this. I liked Norman Osborn in particular. I've enjoyed Norman in general in these past couple of runs. I think he's been the strongest element of Amazing Spider-Man because they've been doing something different with him. Him still being Norman Osborn and now having to be empathetic to Spider-Man and being Spider-Man and Peter's life and him being like, I don't know how he kind of dealt with all of this. I really like those moments. But then when you went to Ben, I was like, I don't really care about Ben. And obviously, the elephant in the room, it is still John Romita Jr.'s art, so it was a little harder to get into because of that. So that is why it's a little lower. But honestly, if it was stronger artwork and we didn't have as much Ben, this probably would have been a lot higher because I did like the Norman stuff here. So giving that 3 stars, and that was number 13. Moving on to number 12, which is Predator Kills the Marvel Universe, issue 4. This is what I mean by palette cleansers that kind of lean a little bit more towards my liking. This is honestly just an action book. It's, all right, Thor's getting killed by a predator. Invisible Woman's trying to fight against the predator. There's this ultimate predator by the end who has the Weapon X connected to him. It's just like kind of fun action. There's not much depth to it, but I think for me, this is something I enjoyed a little bit more as characters that I'm familiar with, and I think they balanced the action a little better with plot points, some bigger plot points. So I gave this 3 stars. I had a good time with it. It's a fun series. It hasn't made my top 5 like the Spider-Man side of the stuff, but I'm still having a good time with it as someone who knows nothing about Predator and just kind of jumping in as a Marvel fan. Moving on to number 11, which is Deluge, issue 2. This is Ignition Press comic book, and I really liked the horror elements here. I liked the visuals of this book. I wish I liked the characters a little bit more, though, because it has such an Orange is the New Black vibe without the backstory of these characters. Like, they give you, like, some visuals, but there's so many characters, and there's not, like, one issue being like, I'm going to focus on this character, and then we'll focus on this, so you enjoy all the characters. It is focusing more on how do they escape this prison. So I'm a little bit on the fence of if I'll get the next issue. It really depends on the type of week. If it is 19 comics, again, probably will not get the next issue. If it's like 10 comics, I might try the 3rd issue. So it's a little bit on the fence for me. So giving that one 3 stars. Number 10 for me is The Punisher, issue 3. I don't know, this is just another one that doesn't have that much depth, but I like the little strokes that they've been making interesting with the narration. I think it gets you into Punisher's head a little, and especially with him not having his memories, and now we're trying to get towards that Fisk versus Punisher moment. And I actually think it's sold on the red band aspect. I think the violence is actually higher than we normally would get in a Marvel book, which is nice because sometimes the red band books don't really feel that violent. You're like, oh, why is this red band? Yeah, I like the action in this, and I'm curious to see where Punisher is going to go. And it's the same writer who does do the Marvel Universe Predator book, so it makes sense. It kind of has that fun vibe to it. Again, I don't know if it's going to skyrocket to my number 5 because I don't know if there's a ton of the depth in here compared to like Jason Aaron's Punisher, which I personally really liked, and I know not hardcore Punishers liked, but Punisher fans liked. But I enjoyed a book like that. I'm curious to see where this is going to go past the Red Band series. So giving that one 3.5 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, and I'm surprised how high it is, and I'm happy to see that, and that's Radioactive Spider-Man issue 2. And it's mostly because I do feel like they're doing a little bit of different stuff here. Like, I like the emotion that Peter had with losing MJ. I enjoyed the twist with Aunt May here, and I like that the Spider family didn't like Peter by the end because of conflicts that they had. So there were some interesting story beats we hadn't seen before. Even if I don't love the Age of Revelations world, I enjoyed how Peter kind of reacted to it all and the effects it had on Peter. So giving that one 3.5 stars, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is the topic of the video. I have a few covers I'm going to show first, and then we'll get into the topic. So I got 4 covers for this one. First, I got the Zatanna and Scarlet Witch cover. I got a foil cover. That was a last minute pick, but I've been getting a few of the foils, and it was just kind of staring at me, and I'm like, all right, I'll get the foil cover. Then I got Catwoman and Emma Frost, How to Do It. I love Emma, and I do like Catwoman, and I thought that was a gorgeous cover. And then this one, out of all the covers I love the most, is Nightwing and Laura, so X-23, and it's Bruno who did the art for Nightwing, doing the art for that. Now let's talk about this book. Like I was saying in the prelude of this video, a lot of people went to the comic book store because of a book like this, and I love that. I love people getting into comics on a Wednesday Warriors at 12 o'clock to get their DC and Marvel crossover Batman and Deadpool storylines. What was better? Was the Marvel version better? Was this better? Now this was the DC side. The way you know is that Batman's on the top and then Deadpool's on the bottom. I actually do think they could have made it a little bit more obvious of like what's the DC side and what's the Marvel side, and maybe say volume 2 or whatever to know that this is not the same exact book that was just sold 2 months ago or whenever it came out. But if I had to pick and choose, it really has to do with the short stories, because I still stand by what I said in my first volume review of this, is I didn't really like that they picked Batman and Deadpool, and I still didn't really like it here. They had Cassandra Nova as a villain here, which, okay, fine, and it worked with the trippiness that Grant Morrison usually does, but it didn't do anything for me. I'm not a huge Deadpool fan. I'm not a huge Grant Morrison fan in the trippiness of their storytelling, so I just couldn't get into this story, probably more than the first volume of it. And why did we have another version of their story? Why not pick 2 different characters? Which I know they're going to do another anthology with Superman and Spider-Man, I think. But like, why did we need 2 parts? Why wasn't Superman and Spider-Man this version? I didn't need as lengthy of a story about Batman and Deadpool. I just wish they picked other characters. But the short stories, just like the first volumes where I thought this succeeded, especially for me personally, the Wolverine and Nightwing story, because it felt the most connected to if you've ever read a Marvel or DC book, because you know Tom Taylor, back in the day, wrote All New Wolverine and did a lot for Laura's character, created Gabby, who's a fan favorite, created Jonathan, who's a fan favorite animal character, and had a long run on that character, and then went on to Nightwing and had a very long run and made elements to Nightwing that we hadn't seen before, including another pet character that shows up in this story. And it actually felt like the meshing of those 2 runs that, as a fan, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I've been waiting years for that. The other stories just felt like, oh, I guess we'll tell a Constantine story. I guess Harley Quinn and Hulk should team up. The other one I really appreciated was Static and Miss Marvel. I felt like those really made sense and it felt very powerful to me. Constantine and Doctor Strange made sense, but it might be my fandom. I don't care about those characters as much, so I couldn't get into those as much. And then the Hulk and Harley Quinn one I just thought was a little weird, but if I had to compare the two, they're kind of similar, honestly, because I really liked, in the first volume, the Wonder Woman and Captain America story. Thematically, I really liked it. Shows how Marvel and DC were very different types of companies and you know, how they tell their superhero stories differently. I really enjoyed that as just a comic fan. As a Marvel and DC fan, Wednesday Warrior, I enjoyed Nightwing and X-23 here. And that's probably the conflict with anthologies like this. Like, for me, I kind of wish there was just a full mini-series and I could just really get into the characters and their moments. With anthologies, that you have such limited pages and you have so much you're trying to fit, it can't be as strong as something like a mini-series that is a little bit more focused, I would say. So, you know, like I said, they feel kind of the same to me. It's very hard to pick and choose, but I'll just say the first one felt a little bit more exciting, but both had one story that I really enjoyed. So giving that 3.5 stars because of the importance of the series too, and just the excitement around it, I think it deserves to be a bit higher. Moving on to number 7, which is Power Rangers Prime, issue 12. I just really like the direction Power Rangers has been going, and now we have some big cliffhangers here. One of the characters is leaving. We have a Green Ranger that's really interesting who plays that role. It does feel like a new chapter is beginning, and I'm just starting to really like these characters, and it just reminds me a lot of what I liked about the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers run so much, now with these newer characters. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that was number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Mary Sue issue 2. I'm having a fun time with this, and it's interesting because I've never been part of the fandom community of fan fiction, but from an outsider's point of view, I've understood it. I've had friends who've been involved in it. It was interesting to kind of get into that community that I didn't feel a part of. This idea of why Mary Sues are important, or why fan fiction's important, what type of friendships you get with that. And I think this issue did a very good job with that, all while kind of creating drama with its own world and with its own characters. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Absolute Flash issue 9. I just feel like the art is really solid for this book. I like the twists and turns of what's been going on with the rogues and how Wally's connected to it all. And there's some bigger Flash plot points that happen here with the cosmic treadmill, some characters that we know in a different way, like Reverse Flash. It just had a lot of good tidbits here as a Flash fan, and some good character moments with Wally, and especially his connection with his father as well. So giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, a book I just recently started picking up again because I was just like, this is a fun concept. And that's Batman Superman World's Finest, issue 45. And this goes back to what I really liked about that first few issues of World's Finest. And then I think after like issue 20 or so, they started doing their own arc, and I'm like, oh, it kind of got into itself too much. And now it's going back to just a fun storytelling of utilizing these characters and what's surrounding them, their supporting cast. I'm kind of surprised that they haven't used Joker and Lex Luthor as a tag team, and now we get to see them as one joint unit by the end of the issue. It's just a lot of fun. I just think they're using the mythology in a way that feels different, but also is like, oh wait, why haven't I seen this before, right? And that's the type of storytelling I like from World's Finest. And also the artwork does remind me a lot of Dan Mora's art style, even though it wasn't Dan Mora, which I thought was a good replacement artist. So giving this 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is All New Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider issue 4. I just love this series. I feel like Stephanie Phillips really understands Gwen and the drama we want with Gwen. It was just a fun Venom story where we get to see Venom on the loose. Anti-Venom teams up with Gwen. Gwen kind of talks about her anger and her connection to Venom. And then by the end, we get to see other Spider characters team up with them. If you like Spider-Man, if you especially obviously like Spider-Gwen, I think this is a really fun adventure that is angsty, but also fun. Just a really great layered superhero story. So giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, and that is Everything Dead and Dying, issue 3. If you are not picking up this book, do yourself a favor and pick it up, especially if you like things like The Walking Dead. This feels like a really well-paced Walking Dead, because obviously you have like only 5 issues to tell this story. Walking Dead had 100+ issues to tell their story. And I think it's really, really focused, where it is about family. It's about this guy's regret, all while building this world of the apocalypse and how people view zombies and view this guy as someone who was othered as a queer person. And I just really enjoy the character work. And in this issue in particular, his connection to his daughter, and you just feel for this guy of this world that he lives in now, and just so desperately wanting the chance to have time with his family and kind of be a better person. So really, really great stuff. If you like horror, really recommend this one. So giving that 4.5 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, my pick of the week is Spider-Man Holiday Spectacular issue 1. This is everything I love about Marvel, if I'm being honest with you. I love Rainbow's writing. That is not a surprise to anyone on this show. And it's for these very reasons. It just feels very personal. Shows that this universe is so large, but so small. That's what I love about Marvel in particular, is those interpersonal relationships and that real life storytelling. And I think this did a good job at that. Where Peter goes to a holiday party with the Thing, and then he finds out that May is not going to be hanging out with him for Christmas, and he's disappointed. He's like, oh, I want her to have a good time, but that was like our thing. So now the rest of the Marvel Universe, the X-Men and the Avengers, and there's all these little small moments and fun moments, like Vision being a robot dad and Hulking being like, I don't know how to talk to robot dad. So there's like small fun moments like that. But then it's just, the whole Marvel Universe feeling bad for Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's kind of catching on. It's like, does everyone just feel bad for me? Why am I being invited to all these places? And there's this really fun thesis statement of, and I think it was one of the X-Men characters that said, we want you because you are the fun guy. It's not that we feel bad for you. It's like, you are the guy we want for Thanksgiving, the guy we want for the holiday table who's making the jokes. We need you. You are the buffer. And in the end, we get to see Aunt May and Peter have a fun time with each other. But this is what I love about Marvel. This is what I love about superhero comics, is this 80+ year relationships you could build and then have moments like this for Peter, which is, again, just a great interpersonal relationships here. And also the art, there's all 3 different artists, but it doesn't ever feel jarring. Really great art style here. So if you're looking for a fun comic that's character driven and that you've never read Rainbow storytelling, I really recommend this. It's a really easy pickup for any type of superhero fan. So giving that 4.5 stars, that is my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your pick of the week was. And last week we didn't have a pick of the week, so just let me know in the comments below so you could be featured next week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.